What's good? What's good? What's good? What's good, everybody? It's your boy D Money. We on another day in the life of a designer. Make sure that you like and subscribe. Make sure that you share with your friends and family. Make sure that you tap in. What we gonna be talking about tonight is the economics of originality, and this is where we actually gonna hone in on you know being different, having the ability to create while still being able to, touch the masses with your work. You feel me? We always, open our chat and, our live stream with an opening question. And that is tonight, what does it actually cost to remain original when the market rewards what it already recognizes? You feel me? This goes natural with our last episode last night with fashion, business, and ownership. And, we're moving forward from who owns the value to, how original ideas become valuable in the first place. You feel me? Originality, has a cost. You know, why copying, is cheaper than developing a point of view. You feel me? Because at the end of the day, that's what a lot of people do. They copy, you know what I'm saying? Because first of all, it saves a lot of time. The idea is already born, and you already know pretty much most of the results of what can be. You don't gotta, conceptualize everything. Time spent experimenting life is, not needed in those moments because those moments were already experienced. You feel me? Failed samples and abandoned ideas, those come with, building originality. You feel me? Educating the audience about something unfamiliar, unseen, unheard of. You feel me? Why originality often produces slower, initial returns is because the market doesn't owe an original idea immediate recognition. You feel me? Why the, market remains, familiar. It's because, consumers recognize what they've seen before. They like to stay generic. Even with marketing brands, marketing agencies, they do the same thing. They stay generic within their approach of marketing your brand. So it waters down your originality. Trends, reduce purchase, value. Familiar silhouettes are easier to sell. Algorithms reward, recognizable formats. That's why, Basquiat hated, the art form, I mean, not the art form, but the commercial form of art when he was painting because of the simple fact that everybody wanted him to recreate the same painting that he first did. So he just, watered it down for everybody so that way he can gain the success that he ultimately wanted. You know what I'm saying? When a designer can feel pressure to make something more familiar just to generate sales, how much familiarity can you introduce before the idea stops being yours? You feel me? The copycat problem that we have in fashion and even in a lot of industries, and this is honestly something that a lot of people don't really try to talk about, and then when they do, they just try to talk down on people instead of actually talking about the problem. You know what I'm saying? Because copying has a whole entire language. They have a 3% rule. 97% you copy, and then the other 3% you make your own. Silhouettes, graphics, you know what I'm saying? Photography, naming, marketing, drop culture, you know, uh, cultural references. If everyone started looking alike, what becomes valuable? judgment. So, originality versus commercial reality, this is where, it gets uncomfortable. You feel me? You got bills to pay, production costs, real life bills, inventory, and, an actual business. Do you create what you know will sell, or do you create what you believe needs to exist? You feel me? That answer, isn't blindly chosen by everyone. You feel me? What's good, Ethan? Appreciate you for tapping into the live. Make sure that you like and subscribe. Share with your friends and family so that way they can catch these gems too. You feel me? Um, you know, we primarily discussing the economics of originality stemming from our last live stream last night, talking about fashion business and ownership. So I appreciate you for checking in on me. I'm doing all right, bro. Hope you're doing good too. You feel me? Just another day on the grind, and just trying to get to these goals. You feel me? We almost at 1,000 subscribers right now. We just trying to lock in that, so that way we can start monetizing everything we got going on. Word, appreciate you. Adventures of the Smoky and Bandit. Appreciate y'all for tapping in. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. You know what I'm saying? Don't mind if y'all, write what y'all do. And here we all about, everybody glowing up. You feel me? But what we talking about is the economics of originality. You know, when it comes down to the designer's responsibility to find intersection between vision, product, marketing, business. When does, inspiration become imitation? The gray area is studying, the fashion history, referencing, culture, sampling ideas, remixing, influencing, homage, and derivative design. But where does influence end and imitation begin when you start doing these things? You feel me? Because honestly, how I started was I studied the history so I could see what the patterns were of old. Because all fashion really is a recycled of trends. You feel me? Ever since Coco Chanel, Louis Vuitton, those first brands came together, Saint Laurent, you feel me? Once they came together, you feel me, and started making certain pieces, that started to create fashion itself. So, and there was other, great black fashion designers as well too that weren't known, that were creating similar pieces that these other, famous white designers, you know, picked up on and started to create these certain trends like chick fashion and shit like that that, you know, turn the culture to start looking at, fashion, individualism, and things of that sort. This is, particularly important for, the designer trying to establish original design language. You feel me? Street luxury design language, for us here at Dreams of Rulers. The price of having your own category. Dreams of Rulers isn't simply trying to, compete inside an established, definition of streetwear. Street luxury, itself requires explanation that creates a different burden. You're not, only selling a garment, you're introducing a way of thinking about fashion that requires, consistency, repetition, education, design evidence, and patience. You feel me? What is originality worth? That's, pretty much ending with this hardest question. If being, original takes longer, costs more, and sells slower at first, why do it? Because eventually the objective isn't becoming known for following a category, number one. Number two, if you're able to actually build something on your own, that means that you're going to typically build it to be fully integrated, meaning that you don't need anybody else's outside resources to create your own resources for your products to develop. You feel me? It's, to become recognizable for you, your own design language, and creating your own, world. Anybody can participate in a trend once, the market proves it's valuable. The dangerous part is creating something before, the market has decided it's valuable. You feel me? So the main thing is that you got to make a decision. Do I want it to be early or do I want it to be safe? And honestly, you want it to be early because at the end of the day, once people start to see it develop, they're going to try and hop right on it. Doesn't matter if it's going to be a slow, ride with that pause or, they just going, ride the wave all the way through immediately. But Dreams of Rulers was never, supposed to be built around safety. Street luxury is an idea that has, already been developed, but hasn't been, nursed through the work, through, the industry or any, fashion house that you've actually seen. And if originality has a price, then part of being a designer is deciding whether, you're willing to pay that price. And, for me, I'm willing to pay that price because, first of all, I don't want nobody to have, ownership of my, work at this point in my career and at this age, especially after I done put in 15 years of, studying, working, learning, different trades of, the industry, you feel me, in the business. And just being around different, companies and individuals and seeing how they do things and the character flaws in a lot of people, make you want to stick to yourself. So for here, Dreams of Rulers, our goal is, to stick to originality. A lot of people, you know, they just want, the easy way out. And when you take the easy way out, you set yourself up for, a lot of pitfalls, especially early on. And that's why you see a lot of clothing brands fail. But if you stay true to you, don't use that 3% rule, and create an original idea that actually has meaning, impact, and that can change a few people's lives. You ain't got to change a million people's lives. You can just change 1,000 consistently, and they'll be back consistently for your brand. That's how you make money. So, it's about how you do things, how you move, you know what I'm saying? Understanding, what originality is really worth to you, you know, what the price of, having your own category, your own lane really is worth to you. You know, when do you start to understand that, inspiration is different from, imitation, and understanding that originality is definitely different than, just commercial reality. The internet and real life are two different things. So once y'all start to understand that, especially within your design process, your business, moves, then, you know, a lot of y'all will flourish a lot more and a lot more seamlessly. So, like I say all the time before I end these streams, put together a solid plan, do the research, and execute that motherfucker, and your dreams and goals will always come to fruition. All it takes is, that solid plan and execution. So start visualizing. I'll catch y'all on the next stream tomorrow. I'm out.